Well, we have an opportunity in a moment for you to be asking some questions, and I'll turn to you in just a moment as you think about that. But one thing I don't want to let this hour slip away is without acknowledging TD Ameritrade's quite remarkable commitment to Omaha. Recently announced you're building a new corporate headquarters here, and also a lot of us see every day TD Ameritrade Park, this magnificent facility that will be downtown. So, you know, you've really taken the brand and the pride of the company in a way that I think is remarkable, and Omaha is really the beneficiary of that. So compliments to you and to your team. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
I think it's very, very important. One question before we turn to the audience. Do you have people that are part of your personal support team? I mean, are there people that you turn to when you get stuck today, that when you need help, when you need somebody to give it back to you, to tell you the truth or listen deeply, who's in that support team for you? Who helps Joe?
Yeah, I think, frankly, depending on what the area might be,
Right.
you know, there are different members of my family or my loved ones that I would turn to. There are also colleagues I have at TD Ameritrade, or I have from the associations I've had over the last several decades that I might turn to. But I want to say this. I think it's important that we have somebody to turn to, and I think it's important to do that. But at the end of the day, this whole concept of spiritual soundness and self-reflection, it still kind of begins and ends with you. I don't mean that selfishly.
Yeah.
But like when you have a problem, you got to be able to think it through. You got to be able to spend some time by yourself. It's not a bad time to say a prayer. And it's not a bad time to look for support from others. But at the end of the day, that responsibility is on your shoulders. And one thing I think that hurts us is that we figure out ways to blame it on somebody else, or I went to somebody else, but they weren't able to help me. What happens to me is very, very much my responsibility. And I'd always turn to loved ones or colleagues to be able to help me with that. But at the end of the day, it's my responsibility that I've got to live up to.
Is one of your principles of leading and living personal responsibility, and is it also accountability? Are there both those parts? I heard you talk about both of those things.
I think a great leader is somebody that stands on his or her own 2 feet and accepts responsibility for themselves. I think as part of that, you've got to be wise enough to understand the consequences of your actions.
Got it.
So all those things, I think, work together, Roger.
Good. Well, I'd like now to offer the opportunity to any of you in the audience that would like to ask a question. And if you would you stand and raise your hand? And the Senior Vice President of Microphones, Rich, is here, and he will capture you and tackle you and give you a chance. Yes. Sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Moglia.
I'm Joe, by the way. I'm Joe.
Grad student.
I'm Joe. I'm Joe.
Joe. Good afternoon, Joe.
Good.
I'm Damon, grad student at Creighton. One of the things that struck home with me is something you mentioned a minute ago about finding balance. As a grad student and a full-time IT manager and a husband and a father of 3 kids under 4, what would be your number one suggestion for me to find that balance and to be a better leader?
There's nobody in this audience tonight, or nobody we would talk to in general, that we said, what are your priorities? You have your career and you have your family. Everybody's going to say family. I think the reality is that it's very much a two-way street, and I think your family is your priority, but you're not going to be able to provide for your family or take care of them family if you don't have a job, if you don't have a career path, and you're going to want your kids to aspire to something like that, whatever that career path may be. Excuse me. So I think this is communication, I think, is really critical here. In order for you to play the role that you're playing for your family, I think you got to have support and buy-in from your wife, and then the two of you teach that to your children. So when you're not able to be there at a Little League game because you have to work or because you've got a paper or you're in graduate school, you shouldn't feel guilty about that. Your kids should understand that. So I think it is a question of balance, but there's balance in the real world. And there are times you absolutely have to be with your kids, but there is time, or your family, but in the real world, there are things that you've got to do for your profession or your career, for your job, that you just have to do, and you need the support of your loved ones to be able to do that.
Question over here.
Hi, Joe. I'm Larry.
Hey, Larry.
I'm president of the Buellin Construction Group. We're a general contractor. And thinking about people and Roger's comment about talent and your experience going to Merrill, Are there some specific steps or input that you had at TD that helped you maybe prevent the HR function from being oversimplified to formalized so that they wouldn't miss talent that you have demonstrated?
Yeah, Larry, you know what? I think our HR function is actually becoming a little bit more formalized today under Fred's leadership than maybe what it had been with me rather. And the reason for that is I made such a big deal about those top 250 people or so in the firms that are leaders, that's their job. Their job's to help develop talent, help promote, et cetera. And if the top 250 people in the firm, then each of those have to have their own set of people and their own subset of people. So I always found that to be incredibly personal. You have to have, of course, recruiting programs. You have to be able to go to the college. You have to be able to do all those things. But I think at the end of the day, to me, it's a mindset and a philosophy that you need your organization to live by, as opposed to just formalizing or institutionalizing something that you kind of look to HR to handle.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Joe.
Hi.
It's nice to know that usually when somebody from New York comes to the Midwest, it's because they're under the witness protection plan. So it's nice to know there are other opportunities in Omaha. I'm Gil Cohen. I'm with Omaha Magazine, not the editorial side. My question is, as a leader of Ameritrade, as a chairman, what keeps you up at night, and what really keeps you thinking about what's going on in the financial sectors right now?
Yeah, I think number one, when I was CEO, without question, I never stopped thinking about our people. That's literally what kept us up at night. If we had the wrong person in a critical spot in the organization, that could potentially bring us down. That was an issue. Having the right people across the board in the organization, I think, was critical as well. The other thing that I thought about would always be where we're going to be 3 years from now, we're going to be 5 years from now, we're going to be 7 years from now, and what might be the opportunity with regards to strategic direction. We always felt pretty comfortable that our strategic direction for us was the right thing. I think that's probably going to be the case for the next decade or so. But then with consolidation being as critical as it was within our industry, that'd be the second thing I think about. What next opportunity might be out there that either complements our strategy or provides us with greater scalability. The third thing, and this is what I would think about a little bit more today, there are a lot of things going on in the world that we don't have, that we don't know much about, and that we don't have control over. And as important as democracy and capitalism is for us in this country, there are millions of people around the world that will not hesitate to give up their lives because they believe their way of life is better than ours, and part of what their mission is to bring us down. Now, rather than fly into a building, would it be more effective to figure out a way to do something biomedically? Would it be to do something from a technological perspective that would get into the system of financial services in this country or around the world? That'd be the thing that I probably think about the most now. I know I worry less about the economy because we're always going to have good times and bad times, and it's always going to take a while to get out of the bad times to get to the good times, and it's our job as leaders to manage through those bad times to get to the good times, and I think, frankly, that's where we differentiate ourselves from others.